Ladybird readers. Black Beauty. Characters. Black Beauty. Ginger. Mr. Gordon. James Howard. Joe Green. Alfred Smirk. Reuben Smith. Chapter 1. My First Years. I was born in a beautiful field. There were other foals there. I played with them, but sometimes they kicked me and bit me. One day, my mother said to me, "These foals don't have good manners. I want you to be a gentle horse with good manners. You must never bite or kick." I grew up to be a handsome horse. I was black, with one white foot and a white star on my face. When I was 4, my master put a saddle on my back, and then he rode me. After that, metal shoes were put on my feet. They felt stiff and heavy at first. Next, my master taught me to pull a cart and a carriage. When he was riding me, he taught me to go slow when he pulled the reins, or to go fast if he pressed the saddle with his legs. Now that I was ready to be sold, my mother came and spoke to me. "I hope a good man will buy you," she said, "but a horse never knows." Chapter 2. At Mr. Gordon's Farm. In May, I was sold to Mr. Gordon. I was put in a big stable with 4 stalls. Our groom was called James Howard. In the next stall, there was a horse called Merrylegs, who Mr. Gordon's children rode. The next day, my new master rode me for the first time. He was very pleased with me. "What shall we call him?" Mr. Gordon said to his wife. "He has a very handsome face," she replied. "How about Black Beauty?" There was another horse in the stable called Ginger, who told me about her life before she was bought by Mr. Gordon. "My first owners made me wear a bearing rein, which made my neck very stiff," she said. "I became angry and jumped and kicked, so they sold me. It's better here, of course, but that might change." Luckily, Ginger was wrong. Our new owner, Mr. Gordon, was kind, and he never made us wear a bearing rein.
Our new owner liked to drive with a very tight check rein.
"What's a check rein?" I asked.
"You're lucky not to know.
Ginger said.
It's an extra rein that forces a horse to hold her head up very high. One day I bit him. Soon after that I was sold again and ended up here."
But the longer we all lived at Birtwick Park, the calmer and more relaxed Ginger became.
Chapter 3. The Bridge. One day in the autumn, my master and James had to go on a long journey. I pulled a small cart, and we went along the road until we came to a bridge. The bridge was flat, and because the water in the river was quite high, it nearly reached it. We returned home late that evening. It was very windy. A storm was coming, and it was nearly dark when we reached the bridge again. I could see that the water was now covering the middle of the bridge. Suddenly I felt strange, so I stopped. "Go on, Beauty," said Mr. Gordon, but I would not move. At that moment we heard a voice shout, "Stop! Don't cross!" It was a man from the village. "The bridge is broken," he shouted. "You can't cross it." "Thank you, Beauty," said my master. That night I was given a warm dinner and a thick bed of straw. This made me happy because I was very tired. Chapter 4. A Fire. My master and mistress decided to visit some friends who lived about 50 miles away. It was a long journey, but James drove Ginger and me carefully, and as evening came, we arrived at the town where the friends lived. Ginger and I were taken to a rented stable where many other horses were staying. I was very tired and quickly went to sleep. When I woke up, my nose was full of smoke, and I couldn't breathe. There was a strange noise, which frightened me. The groom, Dick Towler, tried to pull the horses from their stalls, but we were all too afraid to move. Then James came in and spoke to me in a gentle voice. "Come with me, Beauty," he said. He tied the scarf over my eyes. I let him lead me out of the stable because I trusted him. A man took me, and James went back to get Ginger.
Smoke filled the stable. The other horses were restless and coughing. I coughed again. He darted in and reached for my halter, but I whirled away. When he tried again, he managed to grab it. He gave a tug for me to follow. I refused, planting my feet where they were. I didn't know him, and I was too frightened to trust a stranger. I wasn't going anywhere. James hurried in and came to my stall.
Come, my beauties, it's time to get out of here.
He said to Ginger and me in his usual calm, cheerful voice. I was glad to see him, but I was still feeling very nervous. James pulled the scarf from around his neck and slipped it over my eyes so I couldn't see anything. I decided to trust James and let him tell me what to do. After all, he had never let me down before. So I allowed him to lead me out, and a moment later, there was fresh air all around me.
Chapter 5. James says goodbye. One by one, the horses slowly came out of the stalls. The fire engine came soon after, and the fire was stopped. No horses died, but some of them were hurt. Later, we learned that Dick Towler was smoking a pipe when the fire started. After that, pipes were never allowed in Mr. Gordon's stable again. Ginger and I were glad to get home, but the next day we heard some bad news. James was going to leave us. A new groom called Joe Green came to take his job. At first we weren't sure about Joe, but he was gentle and kind, and we soon started to like him. Finally, the morning came when James had to leave. We were all very sad as we watched him walk out of the gate. Chapter 6. Our mistress is ill. Soon after James left, I was woken in the night by Joe. "Wake up, Beauty," he said. "We must ride fast now. Our mistress is ill and she needs the doctor." We rode fast over the hills and arrived at the doctor's house at 3 a.m. "My mistress is ill, sir," said Joe. "You must come immediately." "I can't," replied the doctor. "My horse has been out all day and it's tired." "You can borrow my horse," said Joe. So, the doctor made me run very fast all the way back to Mr. Gordon's house. When I was put back in my stall, my legs were shaking. After that, I became very ill, and everyone thought I was going to die. When I finally got better, I heard that sad things were going to happen. Our mistress had to move to a warm country because she was ill, and the horses were going to be sold. At last, the day came when we took her to the train station. "We will never see her again," said Joe sadly. Chapter 7. At Earlshall Park. The next morning, Joe took Merrylegs to a neighbor who wanted him for his children. Then Ginger and I were taken to Earlshall Park, our new home. "We have never used a bearing rein with these horses," Joe explained to our new master. "Well, they will have to use one here," he replied. The next day, I had to wear a bearing rein for the first time. It was very uncomfortable, and it was difficult to pull the cart up hills. I was unhappy, and Ginger hated it. She kicked so much that she fell down on the road. After that, she was used for hunting, and I was given a new partner called Max. Although I was fed good food and my stable was clean, I did not feel I had any friends at Earlshall Park, and the bearing rein was always tight and uncomfortable. I became unhappy because I was lonely and I hated my work. Chapter 8. A Fall on the Road. When my master and mistress went to London for the spring, a groom called Reuben Smith managed the horses. Smith was a good man, but sometimes he rode us too fast. One evening, Reuben Smith rode me into town. He was late finishing his business, and it was dark when he came to fetch me. He rode me back in a hurry, and didn't notice that one of my shoes was falling off. Then he hit me, and I ran faster. The shoe suddenly came off, and I fell onto my knees. Reuben Smith was thrown onto the road. I heard him breathing for a while, and then it stopped. He was dead. I was put in a field for my knees to get better. Ginger was there too. She also needed to rest, because the hunting was hard, and she was tired. One day my master came to see me. "We cannot have that horse pulling the cart," he said. "His knees are too bad. We will have to sell him." Chapter 9. Life as a Job Horse. A week later, I was sold to some stables to work as a job horse. This meant I could be rented to carriage drivers or to anyone who needed a horse. I was quiet and gentle, so I was often rented to the worst drivers, because I never kicked or bit them. One day, a man called Mr. Barry came and took me out. He was a good and gentle driver, and when we returned, he decided that he wanted to buy me. At first, this was good. My groom, a man called Mr. Filcher, looked after me well and kept my stable clean. After a few weeks, I noticed that I was getting less food, and then no food. I soon became weak. A friend of Mr. Barry's noticed how thin I was. "Is your horse eating the oats that you buy for him?" he asked. Mr. Barry was surprised. He discovered that Mr. Filcher's wife was giving my food to their rabbits, which they sold at the market. Chapter 10. A Lazy Groom. Mr. Filcher was sent to prison for 2 months, and Mr. Barry had to employ a new groom. His name was Alfred Smirk, and he was very handsome, but he loved himself too much. Mr. Smirk was never cruel to me, but he was lazy. He never brushed me, and he never cleaned my feet. He also didn't clean my stable enough, and my feet soon hurt from standing on wet, dirty straw all the time. When I nearly fell twice in one afternoon, Mr. Barry called the vet. "Your horse's feet are hurting him because his straw is dirty," the vet said. Then he cleaned my feet, and he told Alfred to change my straw and clean the floor. I was soon better, but Mr. Barry was so angry because of both his groom's lies that he decided to sell all his horses. So, I had to be sold again. Chapter 11. My Final Home. While I was waiting at the horse sale, a farmer came up to me, and he felt my shoulder with his hand. "This is a good horse, Willie," he said to a young boy at his side, "but he's not been lucky." "Poor boy," said Willie. "Can you buy him and make him strong again, grandfather?" The farmer walked me up and down. "He'll be a good horse again," he said. "I'll buy him." After that, I had good food and I was looked after well. One day, the farmer's wife came to ride me. "I like him," she said. "Please, can I try him for a few weeks?" The next day, I was taken to a comfortable stable. As the groom was cleaning my face, he said, "That is like Black Beauty's star. Is this him?" The groom was Joe Green. My troubles are finished now. I've lived here for many years, and I'll never be sold. I am very happy here. But sometimes I still like to dream I'm with my old friends, Merrylegs and Ginger, standing quietly together under the apple tree at Mr. Gordon's farm.